Hey everyone, welcome to the first high school dance webinar of the year. My name is Ellen Jody and I am your PLC lead for high school dance on the Godot Communities website. I certainly hope you had a good holiday and got some much needed rest during the break. I did, and I needed it. At our last faculty luncheon before we left for the holiday break, my principal told us that we should think about school 0 amount of time. While that is really hard for us and it didn't happen, I did better than usual, and I did not work on anything but a little bit on this webinar. So it was a good break, and I hope you had a good one and are ready for the semester, because you know how fast spring semester goes. So I'm always searching for ways to ease the dancers and myself back into dance after the holiday break, and my usual plan is yoga. The title for the webinar for this one is Conditioning for Dancers, and strengthening and stretching is part of that. So in essence, that is the definition of yoga. So instead of telling the dancers that we're going to do conditioning and stretch class, I say we're doing yoga. It's a little bit of a trick I use to get buy-in and focus out of the students. They know yoga is calm and focused and about well-being. So, and then they know conditioning and stretching is about pushing your limits and working hard. What they don't know is that these two things are one and the same. So I call the conditioning and stretching yoga. That way I don't have the extraneous things that come with the label of conditioning, like comparing themselves to other dancers. You know, if they're in a second position on the floor, you know, one girl might have her chest the whole way to the floor, the other girl could barely touch her toes. So I don't have the comparison, and then I don't have the chitter chatter. They may not take conditioning as seriously as they would a yoga class. So it gets them to focus a lot more if I turn part of the lights off and play some background instrumental music. And so it's just this little semantic trick that I use to get the dancers to breathe as well as they're doing it. So if they're stretching, if they're doing conditioning or stretching, they might not be breathing and they're trying really hard. Not that they're not trying hard in yoga, but it's just a little trick I use. So quick background of my experience with yoga. I have a 200-hour classical yoga certification. Came from Kashi, Atlanta. I think they're still there. It's an ashram at Little Five Points. So I was a lot younger, and my body was a little bit broken from all the performing and teaching that I was doing. So a friend convinced me to go take a yoga class, and I liked it, and it worked. So I've always done yoga to restore rather than to work out, and it really worked. I think it prolonged my performing career for a couple years at least. So it wasn't one of those weekend certifications. It was a 6-month process, and we learned about the poses, and we broke them down and learned which muscles to use, the anatomy of the poses. We even got into like the history of yoga and a lot of that kind of things. But and we also learned a lot of breathing techniques, which I don't teach really, but it helps me to get the kids to actually breathe as they're dancing and stretching and strengthening. I did teach yoga to adults for a while, but once I got the job here at Brookwood, I stopped doing that, and I just incorporate the whole of yoga into my dance teaching practice. So anyway, since I've been here at Brookwood, I generally do yoga once a week with them. Generally, it is on a Friday. That just works for our schedule. And they've really liked it. Like, I have a lot of kids who are like, "Are we doing yoga? Are we doing yoga?" Like, we'll be in the middle of show week during class, like getting ready for the performance, and like, "Can we do yoga, Miss Ellen?" I'm like, "No, we can't do yoga." So they really like it. So it's really helped, and I think it really has helped them with their strength and their stretching, and just overall technique. So it's worked for us. So in this segment, I'm going to focus on stretching different areas of the body and some balancing exercises as well. I'll use the names of the poses that I learned, but I know there's a ton of names for different poses. So I'll make it clear what I'm doing in the video, and then I will give you a list in the document section of what we did in the video. So anyway, if it's a different name, it's a different name, but you can see what we're doing. So, okay, we are going to get started with stretching and balancing. Okay, so before I begin a class with the kids, I always ask them what specific muscles they need to work on and stretch. This gives them some autonomy over the class and then gives me a little bit of a direction with where to go. Generally, by the time everyone's called something out, we just start from the head and work the whole way down. So we usually get the whole body in there. There are some days where I'm focusing on one or two parts, but most of the time, it's from head to toe. I do always start with a warm up, but I'm not going to focus on that today. So the warm up quickly just usually includes some deep breathing in through the nose, out through the nose is what I was taught. Neck rolls, shoulder rolls, arm circles, spinal flexes, so focusing in on the low back with the breathing. Spinal twists, just here all in easy pose. Side stretches, and then I do the ankle and wrist rotations as well. And then I always remind them that every single exercise we do, even if it's the neck rolls, we're really engaging the core the whole time, and that's part of the work. Even if we're not focusing on that particular thing, we're still using our core the whole time. So as I get into the poses, as for how long to hold each pose, for the optimal stretch, that's really up to you and what works for you and your dancers. You can use music counts, I guess, like 24 count, 3 counts of 8. And again, it's specific to what you guys want to do. I generally just, I don't know, it's intuitive, maybe 3 deep breaths as we're in the pose. So whatever works for you and your dancers. So I'm going to go through the list. All of these will be done on one or both sides, right and left, obviously. But I'm just going to show one side, so we don't have a very long video. Okay, so head to knee with flat back. So that's the arch of my foot goes in the curve of my knee, and I'm sitting up. And you can have them like really flex this foot and really use that quad muscle. Have the arms up, shoulders down. And then I always start with a flat back and have them hold it here for a moment, just so they get that really reach. You'll find that the kids will do this. So I don't have much flexibility anymore, so with that flat back, I can't go very far. So even if you're up here, with that flat back, that's fine. So this is the head to knee, the head to knee with the flat back. And then the next part would be the head to knee, which is the relaxing over. This is the hamstring stretch. And I always tell them too, if they need a little assist, they can pull themselves down. If they can't reach their toes, at the ankles or at the calf, for a little extra pull there. And I do find that they hold tension in their shoulders and their neck, so I always try to remind them to release all of that. Spinal twist, you can have them do it like this with this leg stretched and here, long spine here, or if you want, you can have both knees bent as well. Just making sure both sits bones are on the floor, because they'll want to do this as well. So, and then I always find that they're back here with the hand. So if we bring this hand in closer to the bottom, and then we can press up and then twist. And again, breathing the whole time we're going. I do the inverted quad stretch, which is here. This leg can be straight or bent, does not matter. They love to just hit the floor with their back, and then this knee comes up, and then they're really arched. So my rule for this stretch is that the knee has to stay on the floor, and there can't be a big arch in the back if they're going to lay their shoulders on the floor. I certainly cannot do that anymore. So I usually am here, or they can get to their see if I can get to their elbows. But nope, my knee is not on the floor, so I got to stay up here. So that's another stretch here. Let's see, stacked up knees. So this one is here, and then I'm going to maybe face this way. I'm going to bring my knees and stack them up. And this is that hip stretch right here. And again, you can have them bend this leg in. Let's see if I can get there. Again, both hips have to be on the floor, both sits bone on the floor. I'm not going to stay in that position very long. And then stretching over here. It's that quad stretch, and it also should get that outside hip. The seated forward bend, easy, easy, easy. Again, you can have them flex out those feet. I usually start with the flat back again, and here there really isn't a lot of motion for me because you don't want to be here. And then the seated forward bend is just over stretching. If they need to pull themselves down, if they can't reach their toes, again, their ankles, then they can just sort of hold here. Seated forward bend, the wide angle, getting the inner thighs. They can go as wide as they want, but I always say they have to have their knees, and I do toes. Well, for my beginners, knees and toes up to the ceiling. Not that we're necessarily flexed the whole way, but just they're pointing upward. Because, the tendency is to roll, that roll in. And I know a lot of our advanced dancers will have those legs, it's like Graham training, I guess, that they're turned out. So I just have the knees up to the ceiling and then over for those inner thighs. Moving right along, cat-cow. That's going to get the upper back and the shoulder blades. So we're hands and knees. My knees are under my hips. My hands are under my shoulders. And it's that arch. And I always tell them to take their eyeballs up to the ceiling. So they're taking their chin, so they're getting a stretch along the front. That's the inhale. And then the exhale is pressing into the shoulder blades, contracting the abdominal muscles. And then it moves through. That's how I do it. So inhaling. And I always tell them they can go at their own pace. If they want to go a little faster, if they want to go really slow, that's fine too. That's that cat-cow stretch. Then I can go into the low lunge. So I have my, it seems hard for a lot of the beginners, and I just don't know why. They want to have there and they want to go here. So it's always a reiteration of ankle under knee. I always say 90-degree angle. Use your geometry. Is that geometry? I don't teach math. And then we can walk the knee back and get a stretch along here as well. You can add variations to this. You can reach up and twist. You can have them come up here and reach the arms. Just lots of variations on that one. Let's see, low lunge, and then move over. And then from here, I'll have them tuck the toe under, full runner's lunge, and we're pressing into the heel and taking the back of the knee up towards the ceiling. Again, you can do the twist. I generally don't come up for this one. That's a little hard. Great, so downward facing dog, I know we all use that. An easy way to get them into this, if they're not familiar with it, is to have them take their hands one hand length out so they're not under the shoulders, tuck the toes under, tip the tailbone to the ceiling, and then come up. I really stretch Achilles, so my heels go down to the floor, but a lot of them won't be. And then we press in, so you're making a triangle with the body. Pressing away from the floor, shoulders pressed down as well. Take the head through. With my beginners, I find that I'll do this 3 times, and I'll have them come back down to child's pose each time, and then go back to the hands and knees, walk the hands out, tuck the toes, and that's how I have them go into that. Another thing I find with all the kids is that they want to be on their fingertips, which is crazy. I'm like, I don't know how they do that. So I always have to remind them, fingers are spread, and the hand presses way into the mat. So that's your downward dog. From there, we can have your hands and feet walk in together, and we're in the standing forward bend. So let the head go. Again, they hold tension in their neck. A lot of the kids want to hold their neck up this way, so I have to remind them to do that. So that's your standing forward bend. Let's see, I'm gonna move this out a little bit. Then, so just a balance, oops, I did it too much, sorry. Just a balance, releve, really, I mean, that's all it is. We can balance here, toe balance. You can have them balance in that forced arch with the hands however you want them to be. Balance tree pose. I have them take their heel, spread their toes, and really press that foot into the mat. And then we're balancing on this leg. We're lifting up on this leg. The full tree pose comes here. That's sort of hard, so I tell them they can put it here. You can have it out here if you even want to have them balance and passe. That's fine. And it's just finding a focal point down and out from where they are. And my hands can be here. You can have them, their hands up here. So it's just literally a balance. I mean, that foot can be wherever you feel like you want it to be or whatever works for them. For the tree pose, you can do, I'm going to come off the mat, you can do the this balance here with them if you have some more advanced dancers. You can even take it to here if you feel like they want to do that. So that's the standing hand to foot. And then the other one is the dancer pose. So we turn our arm out, we take the foot here, and then it is parallel for this one. I reach the arm out here, and then we can take it and balance. So here. Ooh, look at that promenade. Yeah, so that's the dancer pose. And then that last balance that I have for this video is just basically up here on releve, and then coming down to balance. And again, let's see, my ankles rolled out, so making sure their ankles are straight. So yeah, that's sort of a stretching into balance. So yeah, those are some of the exercises that I do for my dancers, and I will drop a typed list of those, what we did in the documents section. So there's a lot more, obviously, but these are the ones I tend to gravitate to. So anyway, I would love to hear if you've got stuff that you do like this with your dancers. I'd love to hear that in the discussion thread. The next segment will be on core strengthening. So I will see you then.